Hey guys, this is Jennifer from the Shooter's Mindset, and we are live with episode 423. We have our co-hosts tonight. We have Greg here. How's it going?
Good. How about y'all?
Going well. This is like the first show in like a month I've been able to call you Greg and not Cannon because we've had so many Gregs on lately. It gets confusing. I call you Cannon instead of Greg. And we have Corey with us. How's it going, Corey? Did you shoot 48 matches this weekend?
I shot one match, but I practiced 3 times. So I had a lot of bolts.
Okay. You're not slacking too bad then.
It is the off season.
Wait, there's an off season?
Hashtag no off season.
I know. Hashtag the matches. All right. And our guests of the hour and the people that everyone really wants to hear from tonight, we have Jacob Heppner and Jenay DeCaussin with us. How's it going, guys?
Good, thanks.
I was going to let her go first. Good. Thanks for having us.
He's just sitting there quietly waiting for her. All right. Well, we're going to go ahead and get the show started by asking both of y'all. And with all of these questions that we have, we're going to ask and then you can both answer it. But to start with, we'll do ladies first with Jenay. So tell us a little bit about yourself and how you got into tactical games and shooting and all of that.
Okay. My name is Jenay DeCaussin. I am an athlete and a coach right now in this season of my life. So I coach CrossFit full time and train as an athlete for tactical games. So those two things are very synonymous for me because I train CrossFit to help me prepare for tactical games. Kind of in a unique season in my life right now where that gets to be my main focus. Is just, training and shooting and serving at my CrossFit gym here. So I got into tactical games like mid last year. I was living in Tennessee and I had some friends that are military LEO that had found the sport prior to me, and knowing who I am, thought that I would really enjoy it. They taught me a little bit of the basics and helped me get set up to do my first one, and I just fell in love with it, and I've run with it pretty hard since then. So
it's fun. How about you, Jacob?
What was the question again? Pose it again. I'm sorry.
So tell us a little about yourself and how you got into the tactical games and,
Sure. So obviously I come from CrossFit, same as Jenay, developed the brand there, competed in that for 9 years, I think. Competed at the highest level of CrossFit for about 5 years, I think. And then kind of in 2020, weird year for a lot of reasons for a lot of people, decided, hey, I think I don't know what happened out here. I decided, you know what, there's got to be a lot. When you compete at that high level of CrossFit, you're putting your life revolves around it. You're not traveling, You're not going on vacation, you're not going to Hawaii. And so my life was devoted to that. And I said, okay, you know what, there's got to be a better way to use my time and try different things. So at that point, I decided to try a different sport. I'd heard about the sport for a while. Some people kept mentioning to me like, hey, you shoot guns, which I'm sure we'll get into it. I owned a gun and shot it. Does not mean you know how to competitively shoot. They said, hey, you own guns, you can shoot, you should try the sport out. And so I believe my first one was April of 2021 in Utah. And they put me in the lane next to Jared Halbert, the current reigning champion, just to whomp on me for the whole week. So yeah, it was a good introduction to the sport right from the get-go.
I was always wondering how the smack talk started between you two, and I guess it was the very first match.
No, actually, I guess why Jared likes me. I don't know if Jared likes me at all, actually, to be honest, but is because I started talking trash before I even showed up. So I think that Utah. Okay. Oh yeah. I said it. I set the bar early. So
very smart.
I started talking. I think I signed up with 3-4 months out, trained for it completely wrong, not even remotely good training for it. But I talked so much trash leading into the event that I think they sold out the elite men's category because so many guys want to show up and completely kick me in the dirt for talking. Should have got real pissed in signing up, but I didn't think about that. So Yeah, I talked trash before I even showed up, and then we just kind of continued from there. So
you're like the guy on Facebook that talks about how he can hit a 10-inch plate at 3 miles with iron sights. And then everybody is like, yeah, come to my range and prove it. And then they disappear. But you didn't disappear, you showed up.
yeah, so but the funny thing is, like, before we record this call, you obviously heard how bad I am at long range. So that would be a bad example of how I would talk trash. Like, I wouldn't say that because I can't hit that 10-inch play from 100 yards. So I would focus on something a little bit easier to talk trash on. So
I heard you got beat by a girl.
I got beat by a lot of girls.
You know, Jen, coming from BRS, it's not uncommon to get beat by teenage girls every weekend.
Very true. We have a lot of teenage girls that can put grown men to shame.
Just what I want to hear.
So what has been y'all's highest finish in attack games?
The reason we're here.
Like, yeah, prior to nationals. So this nationals was my highest finish, I guess, but prior to this, I'd only won one regional event, Utah, I think. Texas, I did Texas and took second. This year, West Virginia was a team event, so that was kind of unique. I think we took second.
Who was your teammate for that?
Jake Mizell.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah. So I think we took second day.
How was it competing on a team with your significant other? Like, let's talk about that. Was that fun?
Yeah, it was actually fun. I think we did really well with it.
Are you paid to say that, or do you feel uncomfortable telling us the truth?
Think twice if you need help.
No, I'm being honest. I definitely think that can be very difficult to do, but we had a lot of fun with it, and we had trained a lot prior going in together to kind of work out those kinks and learn how we would work well together. But we had a great time, and his fitness level and his capabilities, being that he hadn't competed for 3 years prior, just absolutely blew my mind. So I didn't feel like I was dragging him along at any point, and I was happy to have him beside me in that. He did awesome. So I'll give him some credit where credits are due. That was fun. But other than that, I think that's all the events that I did this year. I can't remember. But this was certainly my highest finish so far. Jacob, I think, has many trophies to account for.
Yeah. Some of them are still in Nick's garage at this point, Nick Thayer's garage. But yeah, see, the first one I went to, I took fourth in Utah, the one that Jared destroyed me at. And then at nationals that year, I took second behind Jared. And then in 2022, I took first, and then 2023, I took first again. And this year I did, how many regionals did I do? 3 or 4 regionals. And I think I won them all, leading into nationals. So
nice. So y'all are 2-2, if I remember the smack talking correctly, right?
Yeah. I did show Jared, though. I said, there's always going to be a tie break, right? You always got to have a tie break. And in this circumstance, no, good. Thank you for bringing that up. No, the tie break should be age. So he wins. He's ahead because of age, because he's more capable at an older age than I am, is what I told him.
That's almost offensive.
But yeah, we're currently 2-2. Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys both did CrossFit, really high level athletes. Did you do anything growing up before CrossFit, like sports, football, anything like that?
Yeah, I played college ball. Yeah, I played college football at a smaller school here in in Missouri. And I was the math tutor for the team and was on special teams and never started. I was dog poo. But you know what? Those starters, if they ever needed help, like figuring out like Cartesian coordinate system, man, I was there to help them out. They stayed on that team. So so just college football before, but I was terrible at it. So
okay. What about you, Jenay?
I played college hockey. I'm from Michigan originally.
Really?
So Yeah. So ice hockey is very common up there. I feel like when I've moved more and more south throughout the years, when I say I played hockey, I get more surprised from that. But it's super normal where I come from. So I played at Michigan State. Growing up, I did play like every other sport though. Hockey was just
Okay.
always my main thing and what I ended up doing in college before I found CrossFit. And then I found CrossFit right as I was finishing out college, and that really stole my heart and really was an outlet for my competitive nature coming out of college sports.
Okay. So two quick things for those keeping score at home. You obviously are winning on that point, Michigan State versus small school in Missouri. But do you guys think that part of your success later in life came from sports?
Yeah, I definitely think that playing sports growing up was a big advantage. I think it makes you an athlete in a physical sense in a very well-rounded way. You can more easily adapt to different things that are thrown your way. And for example, in tactical games now, we have an obstacle course, we have heavy things that we lift, we had rough rope climbs. I'm not saying that being a hockey player helped me do any of those one things, but being an athlete in many different sports, I think keeps you athletic and well-rounded to kind of adapt well to anything. And then also from a mentality standpoint, the character building that comes from being a part of a team and doing challenging things like that growing up is kind of unmatched. I think oftentimes if you play higher level sports, you get put in those really pressureful situations,
Right.
and you get the opportunity to react and respond in that and learn how to then control yourself better and like reach your potential still despite that adversity and pressure being on you. And I think that Jacob could probably attest, we still use that today in tactical games and whatever we're chasing now as an athlete. So I think it was
Yeah.
very helpful.
Yeah, and I have a really good segue. Jared sent me this question earlier, specifically for Jacob. Kind of overcoming adversity on that obstacle course. How did you do that three rung where you kind of had to launch yourself? Because I just kind of stepped and grabbed and I was there.
Yeah, some of us is called committing to the jump. We had to
Oh, I
have
was
faith.
not committing.
You know, we had to commit really hard on it. They put me in I went with Aaron Clark, who got second behind me.
Okay.
And right now, Jared's texting me photos of me next to Aaron because he's a monster. He's like 6'3" next to me, right? And so like I knew I had to get to the last obstacle first because he's so big, he would take up the whole weave up. Because I take a little portion of, a little sliver. And Aaron and or Jared would have taken up the whole weave and wouldn't allow me to pass. So
So you've got a couple of different businesses. Do you think that's because of the drive that you had for sports, or have you always just been kind of a driven type of person?
Yeah, was it Devil Makes Idle Hands?
Okay.
I was the young kid as trying to sell vegetables on the side of the road growing up. And I think what happens when you go to, this is nothing against our school system, but when you go to school, you tend to lose that entrepreneurial spirit. You go to high school, you sit in a desk, you learn about how to add up, when to use an and or there, the right there, whatever. Then you go to college and you learn something a little more specific, but you kind of lose that entrepreneurial spirit. And luckily I left that, got involved in CrossFit, was able to make kind of a career, a life off of that to a degree, and decided to use that as an avenue to kind of open doors to open companies that have all been with the focus of helping other people out, whether it was in tech or nutrition or in the fitness related aspects. And then my wife also has the same drive. So between us, we have a vast myriad of different companies that are all different, like kind of like our kids essentially.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think it's really cool that you can go from any sport, like any one thing, and be good at it as a kid, right? And growing up, kind of changing how you have that mindset, going from like hockey to football to swimming, whatever it is, whatever you grew up with, having that mindset where you have something in front of you and you just kind of do it. You didn't really know any different, and it's not unnatural for you to be good at all those things. I think it's really cool to see kids that have done that turn into athletes, because I think you end up with a better athlete at the end of the day like that, because they're not so specialized.
Yeah, and Jenay kind of nailed it in the head of like, you asked about like, has the sports you done in your past, whether it be like elementary, high school, junior high, college, whatever, have they helped you attack this sport we're talking about now, right? It's just tactical
Yeah.
games. And Jenay talked about how she thinks it did, right? Teamwork. Now, you'll never see me go team tactical games. I hate team sports, so you'll never see me do that. That's why I asked the question about her and Jake, right? If Jenay asked me, I'm not going team. Don't ask me. So, but the thing is, like, I don't like. I learned a lot of hard work from all the sports leading into CrossFit, but the beauty. I'm gonna make you guys drink the CrossFit Kool-Aid right now. But the beauty of that sport of CrossFit was the idea that you were not going to be so specialized. You were going to be essentially like the best CrossFitter is mediocre at everything, like for a lack of better terms, right? We're a master of none. But if you take us and throw us in a marathon, we're not going to get last. You put those in a triathlon, we're not going to get last, but we're not going to win it. And so we had to always learn new things on the fly. And so when you put us into the tactical games, now, number one, you could make the argument that a lot of the fitness representations in the tactical games are similar to CrossFit. A lot of people will call it CrossFit. And I think it's quite funny because it's like, man, if this was actually CrossFit, I would have won by a much larger gap. You don't understand what CrossFit is.
Yeah, it's true though.
Yeah, it's different. It's functional fitness that we're doing in a dirt field is essentially what we're doing. And but then you add in the shooting aspect, and that's a whole different ball game of athleticism, of learning how to manipulate things, how to learn things on the fly. And I think that's where you truly will find upper tier athletes and or CrossFitters roll in and do very well, because we're used to being like, well, I've got to learn this, and I don't know any other way of doing it other than just putting repetitions in over and over. And so I think that's why you've seen athletes like myself or Jenay or other in this sport have done well and learned very quickly because of our background in the sport of fitness. So
yeah, and you did hit on the next question of like, if you were to take CrossFit and the tactical games at a very basic level, I agree. They look similar to someone that's never done either before. But like you said, when you add shooting, I would say is almost 90% mental. So if you were to just look at the exercises without the shooting and then add in the shooting, how would you say that they're similar, like CrossFit and tac games? And then where do you think they're really separate?
let's go first, Jenay.
Okay. I think there's a lot more, like you said, shooting has a big mental aspect to it. It takes a lot of skill. When I think about training specifically as an example for CrossFit, it's very physical. There's a limit to how much physicality your body can handle in a day.
Right.
But when you train for something like tactical games, there's a much larger cap before you reach your limit mentally as well. So I can go train at the gym for several hours, and then I can also come home and dry fire. And then once my focus diminishes in dry fire, I can be watching shooting videos to learn about how to shoot better, or learning my reticle for long range. There's so many different things that your training capacity increases. So the training looks different than it does for just CrossFit in itself. As far as competing, with the shooting aspect being in there, you just can't go full ham on fitness like you do in CrossFit. Like you kind of can die for points in CrossFit, like put the pedal down and just die for points. And then tactical games, there's so much more finesse in that. You have to be cognizant of how you're going to feel at the firing line if you go at a certain pace. Are you, if I go at 98%, can I still shoot well? And there's so much that goes into knowing that, but it definitely changes the game a lot. You have to be a lot smarter be a smarter athlete, and also just attack the workouts a lot differently.
So one of the stages was a shooting stage where you had rifle and pistol, and then you had burpees, and you had an accumulation of burpees for points, right? Do you do the math in your mind of the time it takes to get a hit for the rifle or pistol versus how fast you can do the burpee? And is that kind of the level that you're breaking these things down at?
Absolutely. Not using that one as an example, but using this other one that I have in mind,
Mhm.
Fried and Shipper. It was a different stage, but at the end of the stage, if you finished and there's still time
Mhm.
left, you got to do max burpee plus bag over a box. So the
Okay.
bag crosses over and then you go
Yep.
over, rinse, repeat. So counting up the total number of rounds you're going to shoot in the workout. And then, say I have 3 minutes, how many burpees can I get in that time? And what
Right.
fraction of that number is that of the shooting? So yeah, I definitely do that math. Jacob does that too. I know he does. And and if it's not significant enough to get the burpees at the end, then I'm staying at the line a little bit longer and making sure I get my shot.
Okay. Cool. That makes me feel good because that's what I did.
Yeah, so
Good.
that stage in particular was a point-based stage, right? So for the viewers watching, right? For every hit that I am successful on target, I will receive a point. And then when I got back from the shooting and I'm doing burpees over the bag, like you had mentioned, Corey, I'm going to get a point for all those things. So my goal in that workout was, as soon as they laid it out, I realized when we got there and saw how it was laid out, I realized this is a sprint, that the targets, everything we do from the tactical games, I can lay out a stage for you. I say, hey, we're going to do this, Corey. We're going to do this like fitness stuff and some shooting. It doesn't matter what I put in the workout. All that matters that everything is dictated in the whole workout by looking down range. What does my target look like? If I have a target that's super generous, then I like the workout that we were talking about. If my target is generous, then I'm going to go hammer down, sprint this thing because I can recover in a minute. And I guarantee the guys my right and left probably can't. But if I look down range and I see a target that is not so generous, right? It's like, that's going to take a little bit of time. Then that's where you're going to be like, okay, well, I got to tone back at 80, 85% and then take my shots on target. You guys last week had Garmin on the call, right? And so what you're going to see in this sport is this sport's going to become smarter really quick, and how you approach things. I think in years past, you might have seen people be like, I don't know why I did it. I'm just doing this. And you've seen training progress for it, right? Because you don't know what you don't know. But now you've seen training progress for it. And now I think you're going to see a little bit of addition there where now you're going to take a heart rate variability into it, right? Because I can tell you how accurate I can be depending upon my target size by what heart rate I'm approaching. So I know if I've got a very generous target, cool, I'll go 160 beats a minute. That's fine. If I know I've got a target that's a little bit more difficult to shoot, good example. Well, your viewers wouldn't know, but you would know.
Call it like a 3-inch triangle at 50 versus a 6 for rifle.
Yeah. Then I know, okay, so if I'm going to shoot a non-generous target, good example, I'm shooting a non-generous target, 3-inch circle at 50 yards, then I know I got to stay around 120 beats a minute. But if that's a massive square, bro, send it, because I don't care anymore, because it's not that hard of a target. So I think you're going to see the training change for that. I think that's how I approach training in terms of heart rate, because I have to know how far can I go in order to get my hits on target. Now, I'm not expecting to get 100%. I'm not going to waste my time with 100%. That's stupid. Instead, I'm going to say, okay, if I want to shoot 85 to 90%, what do I need to do from the fitness perspective to obtain that goal?
I like it. I was wondering about a lot of that because it was my second event. And it seemed intuitively like in USPSA, we know how much time it's going to take to complete the stage, right? I know how many points I'm going to get. I know roughly what the hit factor points over time is going to win the stage. So I was wondering if you did that same thing, and I'm glad to hear you do, because I think so. What if you say the sport is evolving, right? The fitness is evolving, but do you think the shooting evolves too, to the point that everything has to get harder because everyone catches up to that too?
I think so. Like, for instance, we're going to shoot red dots on pistols here for elite, right? I have not had the option to shoot a red dot in years past. I know that the targets will, of course, get sportier. I'm using mixed terminology for that, for pistol shooting. I know in the past years, we shot irons and you guys might have shot red dot, but we're both shooting the same targets. Now, you're welcome, everybody. We're all going to get sportier targets because we're going to shoot red dot. So, like, for instance, a good example that Nick did this year to up the shooting, not all of us got to do this. Jenay took a huge amount of points on this and like crushed it because of it. we had a spinner in our sport, right? And so in years past, I ain't never seen a spinner. I had to call Dylan Easley and get him to go give me a spinner to like practice on, but I only use pistol, right? We had to use rifle. So Jenay made up, gosh, would you get like you 100% the 2-gun stage, and what was second place points wise to you?
I honestly, I can't tell you specifically because Jake was watching the leaderboard for me, but I think it was somewhere around 50%.
I say she feels bad. She doesn't want to say 50%. She feels bad.
I think
but,
it was a 50%.
But that's how you up the shooting. Yeah, that's how you up the shooting, right? Is you say, okay, we can upping the fitness is very easy, right? Either add more weight, add more repetitions, or add more complex. You're not going to add more complex movements because it needs to be a subjective movement that doesn't require a judge per se. But the shooting is very easy because spinner is binary. You either flipped it or you didn't, and that makes it complicated. Now, Nick used the example of like, last year we did a 300-pound sandbag that upped the fitness. This year we're gonna do a spinner that's very similar. I'd make your argument that's not the same because it takes years to learn how to do a 300-pound sandbag, and it can only take a couple weeks to learn how to use a spinner. But I digress. I think it's going in the right direction of making the shooting more complicated. And also, you want to up everybody's skill. You want to make sure no one wants to come into a sport and be complacent. You want to be like, okay, cool. What's the next thing I got to learn?
Yeah, it's got to get more exciting every time. I mean, it has to.
I think any shooting sport does. So what do you think made the tactical games so successful so quickly? They've really grown. Like we had them on what, a year and a half ago?
Yeah, Jared came on early January when they announced Under Armour, and then Jared and Nick came on April when they had the sale.
So, and it was kind of starting to really take off at that point and really grow. So what do y'all think has made it? Do you think it was Jared and Nick and the leadership, or just the community of it? What do you think is making it grow so fast?
What do you
know? Dang, just like hitting me with a tough one, Jacob.
I mean, I can kick it off if you want me to.
I would just say that I think Jared is a great man and a great leader, and anything that he has his hands in and that he cares to grow is going to grow. And I think that a strong leader can do amazing things with anything. I think him, Jake, Nick, and Ro really built a solid foundation in the sport. And honestly, I've been around for a short time, so I can't speak to the length of tactical games being like growing over the years that it's been here, because I'm not an OG. I've only been here for a little over a year. So that's just my perspective from the past year and a half. So all you, Jacob.
Yeah, so he's a great leader, great business owner, terrible shooter though, Jared,
Yeah.
So but yeah, so I'll speak to like the gap in the industry, right? So the beauty of the sport, and we can spend 10 minutes talking about the cool community, right? That's a given. Like if you've spent time at the sport, what it reminds me of, because you could consider me an OG from CrossFit. So what it reminds me of is showing up at a CrossFit competition and the community is like all about helping out. Like if I don't know how to do a certain movement, someone's going to help me figure out that movement, and they're probably going to be competing next to me. So like the first event I showed up to in Utah, when I got my teeth kicked in after talking trash that I couldn't hold up the other end of it, was I showed up and I didn't even know how to zero a rifle. Rifle's not zeroed. I don't even know. I could spell zero, but I don't even know how to even start that process. And so one of the guys there helped me out, and he was a guy that was competing 2 lanes down from me. Now he beat me. If he didn't, I would have made fun of him. But like, it's that community that really speaks to the sport. But despite that fact of community, right, you should really look into the gap that's missing in industry and how well it's just fitting into it. Because you have a huge, one of the fastest growing fitness sports, right? CrossFit, easy, hands down, right? No qualm there, no question about it. And so it's taking that perspective, and I know Nick doesn't like to be compared to it, but it's taking that growth perspective, that concept of the sport, and now saying, hey, now we're going to do kind of something similar to it in a dirt field, and we're going to add some firearms to it in a safe perspective. And so now you're also pulling from 2 different large groups of people. You're pulling from, and the 2 people you have on this call that you're interviewing are 2 people that I never, ever would have competed in shooting sports if it wasn't for the sport. Now I'll go do USPSA. I'm not going to do PRS, but I'll go do USPSA all day long. I'm sorry, Corey. I'll go do it all. You sucks. I'll go do it all day long now because I feel comfortable, because I was allowed to, like, it was like a gateway drug of having me come into the shooting industry because there was fitness already involved in it. So now you're pulling from two different aspects. You're pulling people who are shooters who may not have a great understanding of fitness, maybe not have spent a lot of time in a gym, and then pulling them into the sport, but then also pulling people like myself and Jenay into the shooting industry because we were in a completely different sport. So I think that's what they're doing, is they've found a chink in the armor, per se. You know, we could speak all day long about great leadership, great community, and those are all absolutely drivers and success. But also look at the fact of, like, you've got something that's fitting a hole that exists.
Yeah. It definitely fills a gap, and it definitely pulls from those two things. It pulls shooters and it pulls CrossFitters. And Nick and his team are doing a lot of cool stuff with getting CrossFitters into it. But the one thing from the shooting sports, shooting for as long as I have, I've shot 2 matches, and I've never been to a shooting sport. And shooting sports in general have this, where, like you were saying, everyone would show you exactly what you needed, and everyone wanted you to succeed, and they wanted you to do well. Like, that exists in every shooting sport, but not nearly to the extent. Like, I came and I showed up and I was like, yeah, I don't know what I'm doing. Will someone just show me what I'm doing? And everyone was more than happy to do it. Like, burpees, show me how to do that. Show me how to carry the farmer stuff. Who's the gal out of North Carolina that she just retired as SWAT, or just finished her SWAT thing? I
Megan
think
Kennedy.
yeah, Megan. I had no idea what I was doing on the stage, and she's like, "All right, I'm going to teach you like you're 5 years old." I was like, "Perfect." But
You are 5 years old, Corey.
yeah, but that got me coming back, because it was so nice to just be chill and like, okay, I'll just go do the thing. It was easy. Well, not easy, but I didn't have to think.
So Corey, you're kind of a go-getter, and like you're kind of like
No,
me.
no, no,
As
no.
far as if you want to try something, though, I think you're willing to jump in. Like, I'm the same way. I'm the one that showed up to a PRS match with a 308 gas gun and dope written on an index card. And
Hell
I
yeah.
don't
Sounds like
mind.
you're good.
I don't mind not knowing what I'm doing and being like, you mean you actually dial this scope? Like, I don't mind sounding, because I had done 3-gun, and you don't dial your gun in 3-gun because you do hold
Jacob,
it.
ignore this dialing thing.
Yeah.
Dude, the funny thing is, I learned how to dial, I crap you not, a month ago, 1 month ago.
Yeah.
Good job.
Like,
Hey.
and then they showed me, and I was like, oh, this is cheating. But like,
Yeah.
I don't mind going and like being like, I just want to learn something new and be a part of it. And so I want to do it. And I don't mind if I look like an idiot in the process, because I'm old enough that I don't care. But for any new shooters that are coming in that maybe don't have that same mentality as Corey and I, and they're like, ooh, I don't know that I want to just show up and shoot.
Yeah.
How would you suggest them getting into tactical games?
Yeah, so super simple. Very similar to what you would do from like a CrossFit perspective, is if you show up and you're like, I don't feel comfortable joining a class, for instance, like they're going to have an on-ramp class. They're going to pull you in, Jen. They're going to say, hey, I'm going to teach you how to, squat, hinge, press, pull, the whole 9 yards. And now I'm going to get you, figured out, and then put you in class when you feel comfortable. They do the same thing for the tactical game. So if you showed up, if you're not the type of personality that says, I'm just going to show up and do my first one, totally get it. It's not everybody. They have skirmishes. They have 1-day events that you can show up to. They're very laid back. You show up, the ROs are there to like help you out completely. If you go to a regular event, they're there to run the event. They're not going to give you advice on the stage. Whereas when you go to a skirmish, they're there to give you advice on the stage, help you out the whole 9 yards. And so the skirmishes are really laid back. It's usually 4 stages in a day. Those are held locally around the nation. So that's one good way of doing it. Another way that they usually pitch, that a lot of people do, is you just show up and volunteer. So I know a lot of people that have shown up and decide, you know what, I don't feel comfortable competing day one. So I'm just going to show up at an event that might be local to me. I'm just going to help volunteer and help out, and you'll learn a lot by being there. And then from there, they might feel comfortable doing their second event. That's usually what most people do.
Yeah. No, if you watch the elites, right? You watch the intermediates and you watch the guy that's his first match as an RO, you'll learn 100 times as much about the stage and how to perform just
Yeah.
versus you trying it.
Yeah.
Jenay, are you going to the skirmish this weekend? I think there's one Sunday by us.
There is. I believe I am out of Staccato.
Yeah, yeah.
I can't promise that I'm going to compete, but
She's already back to competing, boys. Off season's over. Hey,
Well, I mean,
if you lose this skirmish, your title is gone. Gone.
I was going to
That's
say, I'm going to be there. So if you're afraid of, losing to me, man.
Oh, let's go. No, contrary to the hashtag, I do take an off season. So
Smart.
Also, on the note of what you guys are talking about, as far as like how to get into the sport, I do think there's a little bit of value in trial by fire, with the preface that you are 100% confident that you can be safe and handle your weapons appropriately within competition, and you understand the rules. I legitimately read the rule book before I went to my first one, and I think that was super helpful.
Nerd.
And then okay,
She read it to game it. She read it to game it. That's a winner right there.
Yeah.
Continue, champion.
Oh gosh. But like, if you know how to handle your weapons well, and you can just go and see what it is about. I remember my first one, I just didn't even understand the game. Like, I didn't even know what we were doing until I went and did it, and then I was like, oh, okay, like now I see what we're trying to work towards. But I think that I didn't have a ton of access to go to training day and stuff like that. I had friends that taught me how to be safe, and I did a lot of research on my own, and there was a lot of benefit for me in just being brave enough to go out there and try it, even though I knew I was going to get absolutely slaughtered, because it was my first competition. I was going against elite females, and I was at Ohio.
Nice.
And last year there was like all the best girls in the sport at Ohio. I didn't know that, but it was great for me. I got absolutely demolished by these girls and had so much respect for them. And just like Jacob said, like, everyone's so eager to help you out, even if they're your direct competitor. So I remember Blair was my judge, and and I was just like blown away by watching her do her thing, because all the elite girls were just, confident, and they were shooting so well and just looked like they knew what they were doing, right? And then she comes to judge me, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like, send help. Like, and she knew I was a CrossFitter too, because I was trying to go fast on the fitness, and she was like, hand release the burpees, because in CrossFit you never hand release. And I was making a bunch of like newbie mistakes that honestly I wouldn't have grown as much as I did so quickly if I didn't just go and try it. Again, with the preface being in our sport that you can be safe, because that's most important.
Yeah, and that's the same thing that I say for people looking to come to my match. Is just, as long as you can safely handle a gun, I could teach everything else.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't have time for that during a match to, hey, get your finger off the trigger, stuff like that.
Or don't point your gun at me.
Yeah. So we're about at the midpoint of the show. Remember, if you're watching us live on Facebook, ask any questions you may have in the comment section of the video. We'll ask it live on air. Other ways to catch us, you can always check back on the Shooter's Mindset Facebook page. The videos stay up there forever. So any of these other episodes that we're talking about, you can check them out. We usually upload to all the podcast apps the night after the show, and then finally everything eventually ends up on the Shooter's Mindset YouTube page. So that's a great place to go and look up past episodes.
All right. I got some lives to sneak in, Greg. I'm sorry.
Ooh, go for it.
I really want to get some of these from Jared. So these are all from Jared. Yeah, don't worry. They're curated. How did getting instruction from shooters from different disciplines help you? And how did you decide what was useful and what didn't apply to the games?
Jacob?
Yeah, it's a good question. When I decided to get in the sport, I made the decision that I'm going to go find subject matter experts in different areas. Now, the beauty of the tactical games is we pull from a lot of different areas, right? We're not going to shoot a bolt gun, okay? But we pull from a lot of different genres. If you look at how the point spread works for tactical games, yeah. If you look at the point, they did do Sniper Challenge, I guess, but I think they cut that out, at least for 2024. But if you look at the tactical games, how the point spread works, right? Yeah, I can go in there and probably focus on what you would call bullseye shooting for the tactical games and still get a good score. But we still have 200, 300 points available for people who are good at action shooting. So I'm going to have to go out and find subject matter experts to say, okay, you know, how do I move with a gun? How do I shoot with a gun? You know, like, how do I come into a position? How do I leave a position? I'm not shooting small little targets now. I'm shooting an A zone or maybe an AC zone. And so I definitely went off and learned from a lot of different subject matter experts. Attended a bunch of classes. Langdon's a good friend of mine. JJ Rakaza does CrossFit. And so he and I had the ability to hang out for a couple times.
Okay.
Yeah. So I make fun of him now because he doesn't do enough leg squatting. He does too many pull-ups, but you know,
He never did. Yeah.
Nothing's changed, right? Nothing's changed. That was actually the first time I had seen people institute shooting and fitness combined. If you go on YouTube, I don't know what it's called, but it was Rich Froning, who at the time was the top of the sport for CrossFit. It's from where Jenay came from for CrossFit. And Rich and JJ, I think, did Fran, which is a named workout, benchmark workout of ours. And at the end of Fran, they had to go like run 50 yards and shoot a plate rack with a pistol or something like that. And Froning murdered Fran. And JJ did okay, you know, acceptable, but then just murdered the plate so bad he caught up to Rich at the end. Like, it was so funny. But that was my first kind of like seeing like, oh, like you can shoot guns and work out at the same time. This is so cool. But yeah, you would go to an expert, and there are definitely times I've been hung out with certain experts and realized that some of this information is really, really good, but it's not maybe applicable to my sport. Like, hypothetically, maybe some things, if I went in, for instance, I was out in Wyoming, completely different state. I was out in Wyoming working with a gentleman for a long range. We were doing bolt. We were shooting out to like past the mile. Well, some of the things that you have to know for shooting a bolt out past the mile isn't going to be applicable to some of the things we're going to be shooting for gas guns for tactical games. Now, could you maybe truncate that information down and still make it applicable? Sure. But like, some of the things aren't really going to matter. And so I have had the blessing to learn from a lot of good people, but then you got to take the information and then kind of sift through it and figure out that applies and that doesn't apply.
Yeah, no, I get it. And Jenay, I really wanted to ask you this question because I was talking to Jared, I think it was day 2, and he was kind of bragging on you, I would say, about how you've picked up the sport and shooting in particular, and you've been texting him and getting him to shoot more. So I'm really curious how you take shooting information and kind of what, you know, Jacob was saying, distill it down.
Yeah. So early on, when I was first getting into tactical games, like I said, I didn't have much access to the training days and the really helpful tools that tactical games puts out. Money wise, I couldn't afford it, if I'm being honest. So I learned a great deal of stuff up front just from online resources. I would watch an insane amount of YouTube videos from like JJ Rakaza and Ben Stoger, and QX Arms has a ton of helpful training content on their website and on their YouTube. So I bought books like Adaptive Rifle, and I don't know, just anything that I could find that people in the sport said helped them. Specifically with two-gun style stuff too. I didn't know how to move and shoot, like Jacob was saying. So a lot of that, I leaned on resources that were free to me and were easy to find. And then I learned a lot from Jake. He helped me a great deal with like pointing me in the right direction for resources. And then I met Jared along the way, and I was very fortunate to learn a lot from him. So when you said like, how do you know if it's applicable to our sport or not? Luckily, I know if I'm listening to Jared about something that he's not going to tell me something that isn't applicable in my sport, you know, so it's pretty easy for me to decipher there. there's been others that I've gotten the chance to work with. Like later on, I did the TTG tune-ups with Kirk Homer.
Okay.
And learned a lot from him there. So definitely have been fortunate to have experienced shooters in our sport that could help refine me and teach me the high level things that I can't get from just watching the stuff on YouTube and all of that. But I would say everything, all of the good things that I did at nationals this year, shooting wise, especially the 2-gun stage with the spinner and whatnot, a lot of that is just the work that I've done with Jared. So.
Cool.
So we talked a little bit about off season. So kind of along those lines, let's talk a little bit about your recovery schedule and if it's changed over the years or not. Sleep schedules, stretching, massage, any of those things that you use for recovery.
Yeah, solid question. Not as applicable to the previous sport it came from. Some people are going to hate me saying this, but the physical stress placed upon your body in this sport is minimal compared to the sport I came from. I'm not going to say it's a joke, but it's very minimal. And it's hard to understand. Like the sport I came from was just you're there for a spectacle, and it's gonna be a body beat down in front of thousands of people. It's just gonna be like you're gonna wake up the next day and feel like complete trash. This sport is not the same way. Not to say that you should put any less emphasis upon recovery. That's obviously important. If I can recover from 97% to 99%, let's get it done, right? But like in terms of all the recovery necessary, it's definitely been toned down, right? Whereas for the CrossFit Games, I'm going to make sure I get easily 9 to 10 hours worth of sleep when I'm competing and when I'm deep into training for that. And the same can be said about, hey, I had weekly appointments with a massage therapist where they came to my house or I went to them, right? And those things are still important. Don't get me wrong. What we talked about earlier, Jen, like offline, was stretching is important. It isn't as important based upon the physicality of the sport. No one likes my answer.
I like it. I think it's spot on if you competed at an extremely high level, and like playing judo compared to like doing jujitsu, the car impacts 100 falls a night. You had to have a better recovery system than you had for jujitsu. But Jenay, you can obviously recover a lot better than I can. You're a lot younger than I am. So what do you do for recovery?
I don't know if that's true, man.
You're definitely younger than I am.
I mean, maybe so, but I always joke that, like, I think I heard Rick say this once, and I was like, that is so true. Like, maybe I'm younger, but I feel like I've got a lot of miles on me, you know? Like,
it ain't the years, it's the miles.
Yeah. So recovery is just very simple for me. I eat a lot, like as much as I can, because I'm always trying to get stronger. I'm very small for my division. Like the other girls are a lot more strong and powerful than me. So for me, I'm fortunate enough that I just get to eat as much as I can pretty much. But with that said, I eat very clean. So that when I show up to training every single day, my body feels good. I don't know. I've noticed that like if I eat poorly, I show up and my body aches more than it should. Little nuances that you can only see if you're very consistent in what you eat. So then you can see the difference when you make small changes. But I eat a lot, and then I try to sleep at least eight hours a night, and I'm pretty good about that. And that is pretty much all I need during the season to stay chugging along and be fine. Over the weekend of nationals, I was doing ice baths in between, ice baths after the run, little extra recovery stuff to try to mitigate the volume overall of the weekend. Coming from CrossFit, like I'm used to higher volume, but just competition intensity is different. And we always start out with a long run in nationals, and it always smokes my legs. So then I try to play catch up all weekend from that. I'll use like a Compex and massage gun in between events, stuff like that. But I would agree with Jacob that it's not as important as CrossFit, but I think those little 1% can help you across the weekend, like nationals, you know?
Yeah, I definitely don't feel bad about having hunted elk in Colorado the week before and having the long gazelle legs because that run, that was a joy for me.
Do you just have a ruck?
No, that was even
Okay,
better.
I don't want to hear it, Corey. Okay, I don't want to hear it now. So screw off.
The ruck was so bad.
But
Okay,
I was in
all right.
snow in Colorado with a rock.
Here we go. Here's going to be the main point, the only point of the podcast that actually matters. And we're gonna pink slip Corey's spot on this podcast. So if Corey fails this question or fails this answer, I will easily take his spot. Greg, you have my phone number. Feel free to call me. Corey, what was your time on the run without a ruck?
Oh, it doesn't even matter, bro. I didn't look at a
No.
single score all weekend. I have no idea. If you want, I'll pull it up. I will pull it up. So we'll get back to that.
Well, yeah, we'll
Jen
come back to
alive.
this.
Yeah. While Corey's looking that up, William has a question for Jacob. He wants to know, what's your favorite type of stage? Do you prefer technical, precise shots, maybe long range stages, or pure running gun blasting up close fast?
He likes getting beat by girls.
Yeah, I like getting beat by everybody and their mother. I will not say it wasn't one of my most favorite stages, but it is a stage I have improved on, or things I've improved on over the course of the year. I'm not a huge fan of short events, right? Like we do 100-point events that are very USPSA stage-esque, right? So we're talking like probably sub 20 seconds, going to be very fast. And those stages present being 100 points, they make a huge point swing. It reminds me of like a punt team for football. Like your biggest field change can happen. Big mistakes can be made there and big swings in the game can be made. So I don't like long range, so I'm just going to nail that one on the head. But I was able to have the fastest time overall with a pistol only. It was like a bastardization of T-Rex arm scrambler drill. So that I've improved on that over the course of many years, 2 years, I should say, of shooting, where I'm able to feel more comfortable running and shooting with the gun. If you'd asked me like a year and a half ago to run my pistol, I probably would have looked like the biggest dork you've ever seen in your life. So
quick update on the times. I was 3:2:44. You were a rapid 2:2:93. So you did beat me by 300 whatever's they are.
So Greg,
300 whatever's they are.
Hey Greg, so if you can just let me know how often we film these and when I need to show up with information prepped and
I'll see you at USPSA Saturday.
Hey, I'll be taking them.
Oh God. Okay. So some quickies. How many calories do you guys eat in a day?
I used to track, but I don't anymore.
Okay.
So I don't know. I know the macros that I was trying to hit when occasionally I'll track again just to see where I'm at, but I just try to eat
What are
a
the
lot.
macros then?
The macros were like 130 protein, 300 plus carbs, and then 65 fat. And the plus was for like there's days that I fluctuate and train more than I train on other days. So on days that I was training more, I would just eat more carbs until I was super full.
Okay. And you always felt better with the carbs versus fat for the energy?
I do, yeah. Yeah. Just that's how my body felt better. I did try to fluctuate with a little bit higher fat, keeping my carbs still around 300, but
right.
I don't know. After years of kind of messing with it, I found I liked more carbs, kept me more full at night, slept through the night better, felt more energetic in training. I think especially when we train CrossFit and even Heppner's program it's still CrossFit. It's just more tactical game specific, right? Yeah.
Nick Thayer's gonna hate you now that you said that. He's gonna come after you.
It's true though.
It's true. It's true.
But with the style of training we do, I think carbs are very beneficial as fuel and necessary as fuel. So.
Okay.
Yeah,
what about you, guy that runs really well?
Oh man. I only tracked I tracked on and off during competing CrossFit. I don't track now. I mainly base it upon like it's the same answer Jenay had. I'm not going to sit here and weigh my rice. I know when I was years ago when I was competing, it was probably 400 plus carbs, probably 200 grams of protein. And I think it was like 90 for fat. It was something around that from a while back.
Okay.
Every now and again, I'll pull in a coach for nutrition, kind of like, we don't weigh things, but it'll be like, hey, how do you feel? And we'll change some things up. Like, hey, if you're eating this amount for dinner, let's add in a little extra protein, see how you feel the next day over the course of a couple of days. We'll base on that. Or, hey, when you wake up in the morning, try, it's very habit based instead of like numbers based. I've always felt that numbers are just, it's not a sustainable practice. It's very hard to keep up.
So more like RPE training versus absolute number maximum every week, that type of thing. Just equating.
Yeah. So it's going to be, because, you know, look, some people like, so one of the girls that I train for the CrossFit Games, 17-year-old gal, she loves macros and weighing her food. That's her style. I was never a huge fan of that. And so that's how she likes to get coached, is that perspective. That's not for everybody. Some people prefer to be like, hey, Corey, you know, you're eating like 1 palm of chicken or 1 palm of protein every night. Let's add another half to that. Or let's eat some more greens. Or, hey, how much water are you getting? Let's add some more. It's very habit-based. So it's a little bit easier to work with for a lot of people who, you know, if you have a certain amount of time today, they probably don't want to waste. If they want to train, they probably don't also want to waste it, you know, weighing grams of rice on a scale. So.
Right. Yeah. I mean, we're not cutting weight. We don't have to make weight. So who cares about that stuff?
Hush, Corey. Some of us care. Some of us are trying. I do think that like, just like anything that you're learning, like for instance, for learning how to draw your pistol for USPSA, you know, Ben Stoger is a big component of like, you know, doing breaking it down to the individual little sections, right? So you baby step it, you know, your hand on the gun 100 times, right? And then you pull it out of the holster to here 100 times, and then you know, do your press. So it has to become very elementary for you then to be able to just do it, right? And I think nutrition's the same way. I think the counting macros, or, you know, weighing food. I think when people are starting to learn, they have to do that because you don't realize how much you eat until you write it down. And then you're like, dude, that's bad. And then, you know, you kind of like, I'm at the point now where there are some things that I'll measure, but most things I know about how much, you know, of my light Olive Garden salad dressing, I know about how much of, you know, you kind of judge it. But I think for people starting, you kind of have to baby step it.
Yeah, it's definitely beneficial.
I think it's good for them to realize that it's just not a sustainable, like longer. I think over 2 weeks, because people are like, I don't have time to weigh my food. Like, I don't want to know. But it's mainly used like a scare, not a scare factor, but kind of like an eye-opening, like, yo, you're getting 150 grams of fat a day. Like, let's talk. Like, what are you doing, man? Like, stop eating a stick of butter at night, you know, like stuff like that. But most coaches can kind of look at it and say, hey, Jennifer, tell me what you're eating. And they can kind of get a really basic idea of like, oh, well, you know, a big thing for a lot of men is like, you're not getting enough proteins. Let's talk about it. So,
yeah. I think it's a good learning tool.
So do y'all think that it's more important to have a goal or to do something that you enjoy?
Jacob?
more important to have a goal or do something you enjoy?
I'll add something for you, just for you though. Someone that you really want to beat. That's a third option.
Third option.
Yeah. Yeah. Nah. That's a good question. I enjoy training. I will be honest, I have always enjoyed training for something. I have never really enjoyed competing in it. I don't necessarily enjoy the game day of the event because all the stress is on that personal perspective, but I love the lead in for things. So for me, I'm not going to enjoy the competition itself because it is stressful and there are usually expectations placed upon it. but I am
Yeah.
always and have always enjoyed the training for things leading into it. So I'm going to probably be more goal oriented than anything else. It does help. I'm not going to name names. This doesn't actually apply to the sport at all. This guy would never do tactical games. But there was, when I first started shooting about 2 years ago, I had a gentleman, who we're not going to name. We're going to call him George. George decided to tell me that I should just stick to my previous sport because that's what I was going to be good at and not do shooting because I was never going to be good at it. So I spent a whole year training and decided to pick a shooting sport, an event that he was going to go to, and squatted up with him and beat him. And
Yes.
I don't have to say anything. You just got to stroll off and be like, but in this sport, it's hard. That's a great story, whatever. But like in our sport, like we talked about the community, there's not a guy in our sport who I'm like, that guy's a trash panda. Now, if we do have a trash panda that shows up, then great. But we don't have that guy to my knowledge. Maybe I am that guy. I don't know. Maybe I'm the guy that does that for people. And that's okay too. But I don't have a person in the sport that's like, hey, I want to go out and beat this guy so badly. That's all the reason I'm training. That's not really fun from a revenge perspective. So,
Jenay, any dark Sith energy coming from you?
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so the question is it more important to have a goal or doing something we enjoy more? I think that having a goal is probably more important if I have to choose one. Reason being, it pushes you to achieve more, and gives you purpose in pushing through days that are really difficult and hard, which are common when you're chasing a difficult goal. However, I would say that if you don't have both, then why would you do it? Meaning you should have a goal and you should enjoy it, or else you're probably not going to keep doing it, right?
Yeah.
No, maybe. Like, I have a goal within tactical games, right? But if I didn't enjoy doing it, then there's absolutely zero chance I would put in the training that I put in to do it. I would stop doing it because I wouldn't enjoy it. Just like Jacob said, the training is the fun part and what we enjoy most. And I would agree with that. I do love competitions as well, but the training is so fun. So if I didn't love it, I wouldn't work so hard at it.
So do each of y'all have goals for 2024?
Win.
Win.
Good goals.
Titles.
Pretty simple to define.
I think people's different personalities kind of drive whether or not they like the goal or the doing something you like. Like
Yeah.
I have a lot of people that I know that they just like going and doing something. Like I have a friend that loves to run. She just loves to run. I don't love to run, but I really wanted to complete a half marathon. So I trained because I had that goal and did a few of them. But I had to have something to be working towards. I'm kind of like you like the training leading up to, right? And to me, just having a goal in mind, like right now, I don't have a particular goal other than losing weight, but like I don't have like an event that's coming up, and like I almost feel like I'm floundering because I need something to focus me and be like, oh, you need to do this.
Training for Mammoth.
There are actually,
I'm not doing Mammoth.
No, how about Mammoth 2?
Mammoth 2.
Mammoth 2, there's space open. I know a guy I could get you in.
I don't think my back can take that much run. No. My husband will kill me if I ruck again. That year of training, I think he was ready to kill me.
I think the ruck might kill you, to be honest.
Oh God.
We've got I've got a gym on my property, a private gym. My property's not commercial. Don't tell the county that. And
we know, Jacob. We know.
Yeah, and I've got a lot going on. What you said, Jen, is I have a lot of people in the barn, and I love that they all should have a very simplistic goal. It doesn't need to be I need to go to the CrossFit Games. Doesn't need to be I want to win the TAC Games. It could be as simple as I just want to go run a 5K. Like I want to do a sub 30-minute 5K, or I want to go do this or do that. I love when people come to the barn and have a goal, because if you're just training for nothing, that's better than training not at all. Like that's great. But having a goal oriented makes it easier to show up to do that thing. Like if I'm waking up and I'm saying, going to the gym this morning, and I'm thinking, for what? Like, why am I going to get out of bed? But if I have a reason, because boy, oh boy, I got to get better at USPSA because Corey made fun of my USPSA skills, and that's going to make me roll out of bed a lot easier to go train. So,
Hey,
I don't
I'm
think the
glad
gym's-
you get out of bed to think about me, man. It's awesome. It's a good feeling.
It's better than thinking about you in bed. So we'll say that.
Well, Corey, I mean, I believe that I've already shot one mammoth and you haven't. So I think mammoth should be your goal.
I had 2 conflicts. Otherwise, I would have already signed up.
Excuses, excuses.
One of them involves a shotgun. You should be happy.
Okay,
What?
that just make me happy.
Yeah.
I'm impressed that you're going to go shoot a shotgun.
All right. So get gear quickies. We hitting the gear, the thing that people really care about. What do you think? Is it pistol, rifle, carrier, clothing, and step stool? What step stool do you use? That was a Jared edition. I asked me to do it. He does have a gun to my head right now. But pistol, rifle, carrier, and clothing. Let's hit the big 4.
Yeah, you want me to go through all of them and then, or just kick off just pistol first? What do you want to do? I mean,
do all of them. And red dot. What are you running for red dot?
Oh yeah, so learning that. So pistol wise, just got the phone. So I shoot with Atlas, and so they're gonna let me try out a couple different ones and figure out which one I think will be better for TAC games. I shot a Titan years past because a 5-inch bull barrel helps out because they're so accuracy based. Now with the red dot, what does the length of barrel matter? Something I learned recently. And so we're gonna kind of figure out what the recently, like as in like a month. And so we're gonna figure out what I think is the best fit for the tactical games when it comes to a pistol that I'll put a red dot on it. So far, I've only shot SRO. So I'm probably gonna stick with that. I do prefer to shoot occluded. And so I'm not sure what brand pistol will shoot on top of it though. Rifle, shoot a 16-inch Cobalt. Optic on top, which was probably going to change, but in years past, 1 to 10 LVPO Gen 3 from Vortex. And so with the addition of an offset red dot and being a 1x on the side, I don't need that 1x10 on the top. So I don't know when I'm going to shoot for glass on the top yet. We might push it out and try a 4x16. We might just get crazy and shoot a 6x36, just see what happens, just roll with it. But I don't know what we're going to do yet. So we got to kind of play around with that. Carrier, I'm running.
Are you going to shoot everything on 36 then?
Yeah, so I shoot everything on the highest magnification because I know it irritates Jared when I do it. Because he told me never to do that. And so
that skill's going to weigh as much as your gun.
I want to see the perforation and the change in the paper, how it looks when I shoot it is really
the bullet hole is going to be this big in your scope.
Super. He's got a great aiming point.
Yeah. So, carrier, I run the AC1 from TUX Arms. It's swimmer cut. It's super, allows you to do a lot of things. Obviously, I'm not getting shot at, so I don't really care about protection around my body. I'm just there. It's a sport. So I want something that I can move around in. It's a sport. So I'm going to shoot that. Clothing, t-shirt and shorts from, I work with 10,000. So I'm going to wear the shorts from there that have belt loops in it. Footwear, depends on the event. It'll always be flats of some kind, unless it's a running event. And then if we run a 2-gun stage, I'm going to change out to something with a little more grips in the bottom, like a rain shoe. I think the rain shoe I use is from Saliwa. I don't know. Some rain shoe company. And then step stool. I don't have a brand that I'm particularly interested in, but
I'll hook you up with Granger.
There's always ladders around my property for various reasons. So there's my answers.
Oh God. What about you, Jenay? Skip the step stool, please.
I don't need a step stool. Pistol, I shot a staccato T this year. I don't know how things change with the addition of red dot. I've shot a red dot like a few times on Jake's block. So
Okay.
I don't know what that's gonna look like, but something staccato because I enjoyed that this year. Rifle, I shot a custom build this year, so probably gonna roll with that again next year. My plate carrier is the same as Jacob's, the T-Rex arm, AC1. And I forgot the optic on the rifle I shot this year was the same as Jacob's too. It was the 1x10. But I don't know.
So all of her success can be equated back to just essentially using what I'm using. So I mean, really, I'll take.
Oh my gosh.
I'm pretty sure you got that all from Jared, is what you said earlier in the episode.
Yeah, I got it from Jared. Oh, that's funny. Yeah, but I might try out one of the Night Force ones. So we'll see. I'm not sure what that will look like for next year. And then clothing and footwear, Under Armour for all of that. I've loved my Under Armour stuff to compete in this year, so I'll keep repping that.
Nice. Very cool.
Very nice.
Well, Greg, I think it's time for that live. I think it's time for number 3.
Number 3.
Yeah. I'll pull it up. It's number 3 from Jared.
I know what you're talking about now.
All right.
Here we go.
So it's a good one. It's another quickie. It's another curated one. How do you turn being a student into a skill?
I'm a big reader.
Really?
So big reader, huge reader.
Big
Always
reader
love to
guy.
read. Precision long range shooting. I have a lot of books. And so if I can't spend time with people that are subject matter experts, I can at least read things from people that are subject matter experts. For instance, I mean, I think I own every book from Ben Stoker. Now, that sport doesn't necessarily always apply to us, but it absolutely does for certain points, right, of perspective, you know, for any two-gun action shooting stage for sure. If you wrote a book, I would probably buy it and I would probably read it. But
Funny, you don't
I
want to
have a
read what
book.
I write. I have a couple books.
I have a
you
book.
do?
I have a
Oh,
published
crap.
author, sir.
I didn't know that. Well, now I feel like I feel like a freaking jerk right now. Well, what did you write? I might actually own it.
No. You don't want to read about the metabolome and inflammation and obesity. Definitely not. Anyway.
Nick Laufenberg's book.
What is it?
You need to get Nick Laufenberg's book. Seriously.
Yeah.
Okay. Just send me text to me later, email it to me because I'm not gonna spell that name out. But in order to be good at something, I'm not gonna figure that out. Like in order to be good at something, you have to learn it. Like you start from ground zero and you've got to learn things and you've got to be set your pride aside and be humble enough to be like, I am total crap at this. So I'm gonna go find somebody to help that out. So day one, when I get back from a competition, whether it be a regional or national, I'm going to immediately, within a few days of writing down my after action report, I'm going to sit down and say, how do I get better at long range shooting? Right. That was my worst finish probably ever. And so how am I going to do that? Is it going to be, I'm going to read? Is it going to be, I'm going to find people around me to improve myself? And that's the only way you're going to get better at a sport is the people who are going to progress the sport are the people that are okay putting aside their pride and saying, I suck. Who's going to teach me?
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more with that. I think as far as making it a skill, it begins with the humility, like Jacob said, to accept the fact that you're not great at something, recognize it, and then develop a plan to change that. I guess there is some sort of skill in finding resources. Like Jacob said, books. I mentioned earlier that I watched a bunch of videos on YouTube that helped teach me up front when I didn't have a lot of access to experts or money to pay experts to teach me. So being resourceful is a big skill in that, I guess, in being a student.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like something you can always do. Like I said, you have a physical limit to the day. To some degree, you have a mental limit to the day as well. And it's kind of like free money at the end of the day that you can spend time reading or watching some videos and you're being a student while you're doing that. So instead of watching some mindless show on Netflix at night, I can put on a YouTube video and watch Ben Stoker shoot his pistol and maybe learn one thing that will help me. You know what I mean? And so
Yeah.
a little bit more to me than a mindless Netflix show, which I'm not hating on those because there's time for that too, but maybe a little less of that.
I'll add some quick levity before we finish this podcast when it goes off the subject.
Man, you're already doing better than I am.
I guys, Jen, call me. You know where to find my phone number. So, Jared asked the question, and I don't learn from YouTube. Can't do it. I have to read. But Jenay does, and so does Jared, actually. So we had the first competition I ever competed in, Utah of 2021. We had a yoke. We had to pick up a yoke and walk with it.
Yeah.
It was very light. It was like sub female weight at the CrossFit Games, and there's a lot of guys complaining about it, but whatever. And Jared, at that point, Jared was not complaining about the weight, but Jared decided, hey, I got to figure out how to pick this yoke in an optimal way, and like how do I brace accordingly. These are all great things to research before you go do it.
Yeah.
So he typed in like how to pick up a yoke or whatever on Google, and sure as heck, the first video that pops up is a video of me teaching how to pick up a yoke on YouTube. He immediately got pissed because I'm in the line next to him the next day. He still tells that story. He's like, I think I typed it in, and there's Heppner's freaking mug looking at me, teaching me how to pick up a yoke on YouTube. And so, anyway, that's my levity for the day.
I would have added strongman just out of spite. So the next one was just some big giant dude.
So my story for the day.
Too funny. Do we have any more lives?
I think we are done.
All
Yeah,
right.
I think we're done on lives.
All right. Well, I think we can wind it down to shout outs then. We will start with Greg tonight.
So shout out to PDC Custom for super awesome rifle chassis back there. Hunter's HD Gold for my blind self to be able to see the targets, and GSL suppressors to make my little pew nice and quiet.
Awesome. Corey, what you got?
Well, I'm going to shout out Jared and Nick because the two events that I shot this year, they were some of the most accommodating, awesome people that I've been around in the shooting sport. And I told Nick this, Nationals this year was the best shooting event, like shooting nationals that I've ever been to. So they're doing a great job.
Awesome. All right. And how about Jenay?
Shout out. Shout out to my mom. I love you, Mom. Thanks for watching. That's all I've got.
All right. And Jacob.
Oh, shout out to my wife who's currently texting me saying, I'm at the pool. Where are you at? Why is this podcast taking so long for her having the patience?
Go down to your beautiful wife. You're in Hawaii.
She's fine. The pool can be there when I get there. So
I'm jealous. I'm totally jealous. I want to be at the pool too. It's cold here. Anyway, all right. Well, and I want to shout out the two of y'all for being such good competitors and bringing home titles. That is awesome. I am very in awe of y'all's athletic ability. I don't think shooting is as much of an athletic sport as everyone wants to make it out to be. But I think tactical games does have a lot more athleticism than say PRS or any of the others. But anyway, just kudos to y'all for, being able to maintain that athleticism and come out on top, because I know it's a pretty good field there with a lot of competitors. And then I just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware that we will be at the AG Cup doing coverage live brought to you by Vortex Optics. So that is on November 30th, December 1st, and December 2nd. We will do it just like we did in Italy, where we will have live coverage with the picture-in-picture where you can see the targets, being hit. We'll cover as much of that as we can. So see who comes home with the AG Cup and all of the money. I believe it's going to be I don't know if Greg, have you heard if the purse is the same as last year?
I have not heard that.
I haven't either, so I don't want to misspeak because I haven't talked to Tom and see if it's the same. But I know last year, the winner went home with $30,000. So lots at stake for that. Lots of nerves that these shooters that normally do not have nerves, they come out during this when money's on the line and everything else. So tune in to the Shooter's Mindset either on our Facebook page or our YouTube channel. And we'll have live coverage of that match pretty much the entire time that they're shooting. So check that out. And with that, it'll be a wrap for episode 423, and we will see everybody next time.